Hello and welcome to the Patient Educators Update. I'm Chuck Jones with Synergy Broadcast, and I'd like to welcome aboard our guest today, Fran London. Hi, Fran.
Hi, Chuck.
Fran is the Patient Education Specialist at Phoenix Children's Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona. And Fran joins us on a regular basis to talk about patient education. The Educators Update is focused on trying to provide patient educators with information that can help them be better patient educators. And today, Fran, we're going to talk about something quite new and exciting for you, and that is the development of a new iPad app that you have been working on. It's called Our Journey in the Hospital. I'm going to turn it around just right quick so we can get a shot on camera, but we'll show a little bit more as we go on. This is a pretty interesting little app, and I know it's in the early stages, so why don't you give us a little bit of a background in terms of how this got started and what you've been doing and how you see it in patient education.
Sure. We've been
Sorry.
at Phoenix Children's Hospital. We've been using TeachBack for years now, even though it's really coming popular now. So we started in 2005 creating journey boards, which are basically the prototype of what is in the app, which are these tips for parents on what it is they need to know before they go home, and it encourages them to teach back on each of the points.
And these are handouts, right?
These are, the journey board itself was a piece of paper with, and actually still is, a piece of paper with the map that you see in the app of all the different cues. And so we would talk to the parents, pointing to the journey board and asking them to teach back essential information like, what meds are your child on, what are the doses and whatever. So we've been doing that since 2005 at least. And then when we had the opportunity to convert it to an app, we saw a lot of potential. Because not only do we cue the questions for TeachBack, we also can connect to the handouts that we give the families in relation to the information that we're talking about.
Yeah, I noticed that you have some steps along the way of things that the parents need to know, but you also have resources that they can actually click on and look at, and that's pretty helpful. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I first looked at this, and I told you this when we were doing our pre-show talk, is that when I first started to play with it, I expected each one of the tiles to actually do something. In other words, like an interactive app, and it's really not set up that way in the initial part of this. This is primarily an information journey, if you will, for the parents, and this is for parents who have children who have some serious illness that is going to require them to either be in the hospital for an extended period of time or certainly seeing doctors for a long period of time. And it's designed to help the parents understand what they need to know in order to take and provide the best care for their children, and do it in an app form that is in the early stages. You're going to evolve this, I'm sure.
Yes. This is the first version, and I'm hoping by the time you see this video, the notepad will be added where parents can actually take notes and email them to themselves or other people. And it's going to be out for the iPhone and the Android phone also.
Okay, that's cool because I'm an Android guy, so I'll be looking forward to that. I will tell you that my initial experience with it when I first started, remember I told you that I wanted it to do something. I did the typical guy thing that when you hit the start button, it brings up basically an overview of the app, and of course I didn't read it. And I started to just kind of navigate through it, and initially I didn't understand what I was seeing, and then I also didn't know how to navigate, and so I took a step back and actually went back and read the How to Use Our Journey in the Hospital, which I recommend that everyone do that, because if you read that, then it tells you some key things about what you need to do. And once I did that, then it made the navigation through the app a whole lot easier. When I click on the very first tile after start says, I can tell you why my child is in the hospital. And that's pretty important, because if they don't know, obviously they don't know what's going on. And it talks about teach back in terms of talking to the nurse or doctor about your child's diagnosis and being able to use some medical terms. And then there are resources that provide some PDFs about what certain things mean, like a glossary, and who's on the healthcare team, how much of medication or conversion tables, things of that nature that can be very, very helpful. And then if you click on any of those, it takes you basically to a web page, and it gives you some information that you can scroll on and look at. But then it's like, well, gee, how do I go back? Well, if you read the information, there's a very simple way to be able to swipe back to get right back where you were. And I didn't do that in the beginning, so I was confused. And then once I read it properly, then it made all the sense in the world.
And just one point here, I had that trouble swiping it on my iPad, and I didn't realize that in settings you can turn off the ability to swipe, and mine had been by default turned off.
Okay.
So if it's not swiping well, you check your settings and see if you can swipe again.
Interesting. Well, tell us a little bit from your perspective on what you hope the app to become.
Well, in the hospital, we have 20 different journey boards, and they're all linked to documentation, so that it's very easy when a parent teaches back on a certain box to go to the documentation and quickly document that they understand it. So it really makes documentation of patient education easy. This app was funded by a grant from our internal group of patient graduates and their families called PALS. They were very excited because they support things that support patient-centered care. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely family-centered in terms of what do they need to know. So we got a grant to produce this one. We now have a grant to produce the journey board for children who have been diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. So that will be the next one that comes out. So we will refine these things over time. This is appropriate for any diagnosis in the hospital, because you get the information from the healthcare team, not from us. So the handouts are pretty generic and about the sorts of things that everybody needs to know. Mm-hmm. When we get to the more specific diagnosis journey boards, there will be more specific links.
Okay, that's good to know. So you've got a plan mapped out for future development on this. Now, I think you also indicated, and maybe we've talked about this already, but while the early version is information only, you're going to make it interactive, where eventually the user will be able to click on information. You talked about a notepad and emails and perhaps storing of information.
Yes, absolutely. The other feature that this app has is that once the parent who's using this app feels confident that they know the content of a box, you can put a star on it so that it documents that you don't have to go back to that. You can move on to the next thing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I see that's in the upper left-hand corner. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes
sense. And I think that's where the note is going to be also.
Okay. All right, that makes a lot of sense.
It's interesting talking about interactive apps. This may not be interactive with the app, but it encourages interaction with your healthcare team by giving you permission to ask questions, by giving you some sample questions to ask.
Yeah, and I think that's so critical, because one of the roadblocks has always been, if I ask a question, is it going to be a stupid question, and will I appear stupid? Well, I'm not going to ask the question then. And so that gets in the way. It's a roadblock to communication, which you want to break down. And I think this is very cool.
Thank you.
How it does that. And the current version is available on iTunes only right now for the iPad. But as you mentioned earlier, you're going to have iPhone next, and then also Android.
Yep.
Now, will the Android be both phone and tablet, or just phone initially?
I don't know that because the tablet came out after we got the grant.
Yeah.
So we hadn't talked about that.
Okay. All right. Well, I have both an Android phone and an Android tablet. I have the Nexus 7, which is the smaller 7-inch tablet, and they've also got a whole group of 10.1-inch tablets from different manufacturers on the Android side, but I've not purchased one or used one. But it's interesting. On your handout, it's laid out like a game board, but in the app, it's more of a path.
Yes.
And you can see the progression as you go from block to block, where you start off by being able to tell why the child is in the hospital. You can tell what bothers me or worries me the most about my child's condition. You get to the point where it says, I can tell you about my child's treatments. I can tell you how to comfort the child. I can tell you about child's medications. And there's a very good natural progression of information. And when you think about it, any kind of serious illness is overwhelming. And the amount of information that has to be absorbed is incredible.
Yeah.
And if you're not a doctor or a nurse, it's sometimes can be to the point where it's like, I'll never get this. And you remember we've talked in other episodes about the confidence to be able to manage yourself and do this stuff, the self-efficacy and all that stuff. And this just plays right into that. So it's a very consistent roadmap. You should be very proud of this.
Why, thank you. Another thing I just thought of while you're saying that is all the points covered in the Journey Board are also points that Joint Commission is looking for in the documentation when they accredit a hospital.
Okay.
So
that's excellent.
We've lined everything up.
Yeah, you really have. Yeah, and it's only going to get better because it's information only now, but the next evolution is going to start the interactive road. And this can only become a model for things that other hospitals can do as well. And as you mentioned, yours was funded by a local in-house support group, and a lot of the hospitals that we deal with, they have these same type of financial support groups, and we've had some of them step up and provide some of the funding or all the funding for some of the systems that we sell, because they're all focused on trying to make the patient education better, the process better, make the hospital better, and these things fall right into that. So this is really great. You've done a great job on this. I'm looking forward to seeing the next couple of steps. Evolution of great ideas is always fun to watch.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. Well, I will. I'm going to close out the show because while we've been talking, we've been showing a little demo in the background of how the app works, and there will be more information as you get new versions announced. So before we go, why don't you tell folks where they can find you?
Well, I'm on Twitter at No Time to Teach, and I have a website where I have a blog, www.notimetoteach.com.
Okay, cool. And then you're also in all of our episodes of the Patient Educators Update, which we have up on YouTube. And you can get there by going to youtube.com/My Synergy Broadcast. Wasn't smart enough to name it Patient Educators Update when we started. I may change that later. But also want to let people know that the app, Our Journey in the Hospital, is available on iTunes, and there'll be future versions popping out. And that you also have a book called No Time to Teach that is available in bookstores in both paper and digital form. And for those hospitals that want to provide some class training or group training, they can get a bulk discount by visiting your publisher, Pritchett & Hull, at p-h.com and save a substantial amount on a bulk purchase. And so, Fran, I want to thanks very much for your time today. We are excited about this app for you and look forward to seeing it in its progression and evolution. So thanks very much. I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, bye-bye.